So, welcome to the Richmond Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, January the 7th in 2026. Looks like we have one guest. Marcy Harding is a guest. We have 4 commissioners, and we have Tom Astley from MMC TV. Thank you, Tom, for recording. And we will put 7:05 as the start time. Great. All right. Thanks everyone for coming. We're going to look at the agenda and see if there's any public comment on anything not on the agenda. Public comment, we're just going to review what happened at the select board, look at the final draft of the plan that was approved. And then we'll go to some other business. We'll probably have time to talk about a couple of things that we need to maybe be focusing on in the next little while. So, anyone have any changes to the agenda you want to make? Anyone have any public comment on anything not on the agenda? Okay, not hearing anything. We will proceed with the posted agenda. So, item number 3 on our agenda, review the minutes from our December 17th meeting. Any corrections, additions, changes that you want to make to those minutes? Okay, no, I'm not seeing any hands or hearing anything. So we will accept those minutes into the record as written. All right, great. Moving along to number 4, debrief of the select board public hearing on the town plan. And, it was the second draft and the amendments that the Planning Commission looked at the 12/17 meeting were approved to be consolidated into a third draft, which will be looked at the January 21st, the second of the 2 hearings that the select board will be having. And if it's approved then it can be put on the warning for a town-wide vote on town meeting day. Not too many comments. It was kind of late in the evening by the time this hearing got around to happening. So the select board didn't really have a lot of questions about it. They had some comments based on, Bard is with the Regional Planning Commission. He's the chair of the board now of the Regional Planning Commission. So he had a couple of things that he added just in support of the plan from the Regional Planning Commission's point of view. That body will have to formally vote to approve this plan after it has been approved by the voters. So we did have a preliminary approval done, and it was acceptable, and they felt it would be acceptable to the board. So we are assuming that will proceed smoothly after the adoption. So, any final comments? It is the material that we looked at last time called the second draft and the list of new amendments. And Keith has been working on putting those amendments into what we're now calling the third draft. Ian.
Sorry I wasn't able to make it Monday and I have not watched the meeting. Was there any public opposition?
Apparently, at the very beginning of the select board meeting, Mary Houle wanted to make a comment. Keith, were you there at the beginning of the meeting?
No, but I did see the recording, and she is just concerned that she's not going to be able to utilize her land the way she wants to, which is a valid concern. But I will say that I did send an email to her today, and I'm looking at your email right now back to me on that, Virginia, and I will most likely be sitting down with her at some point to figure out exactly what her concerns are. But that was really the only opposition at that point that I saw, Ian. Chelsea, you were there live. I know that. Not you were there. You were on the video live. Is that a proper indication of what she's stating here?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It was kind of the concept of it being having zoning, weight. The future land use map is what they're talking about, Ian. So
Yeah.
like, because I think I don't know as if all of her land is rural conservation color. I actually haven't gone back to circle back to that and look at it, but
Yeah,
it was
it
because
is.
of that. And she said that
Right.
um, she didn't want it to be hindered.
Yeah, and so once again, this is not a zoning map. This is the question that we have dealt with all along. This is not a zoning map. This is showing where the natural resources are. It is not saying what you can or can't do with any particular piece of land. So it's a concern that others have had, including Marcy, who's here. This is not saying that you can't build on any particular piece of land. It is saying that in the area where there are natural resources, as shown by the natural resource overlays, that one should be careful about protecting those natural resources. If we're going to protect the natural resources, we need to know where they are. This map is showing us where they are. It is not saying anything about what we're going to do with the zoning. We don't have to zone everything that's in rural conservation, for instance, in one particular way. We can leave our ag res district the way it is, but we would like to be aware of where the natural resources are so that we can build carefully. Marcy.
Thank you. I'd just like to add to what people have said about Mary's comments. She was definitely concerned about her land being, I think, almost entirely in rural conservation. And I might add, she was also concerned that I've heard this over the years from Mary talking about her land, that she is under the assumption that at some point her land was subdivided into 5 lots. I think it would be very interesting to look to see whether or not she gets 1 tax bill or 5 tax bills. But in any case, the tax map apparently doesn't show the 5 lots. It shows her property is just 1 lot. And so she raised that issue. But more importantly, as she was speaking rather adamantly about the fact that she does not want her land categorized as rural conservation land, Judy Ravosky, am I pronouncing that right? The chair of our conservation.
Rasovsky,
yep. Chair of our Richmond Conservation Commission spoke up and said, because Mary was kind of equating town plan and zoning being the same. And Judy said, this is not a zoning map. There's nothing in this town plan that is regulatory. And I just have to comment for the benefit of all of you that it is true the town plan is not a zoning map. The zoning map ultimately should match the language that's in the town plan. The town plan is very definitely regulatory in the Act 250 process, where criterion 10 says, asks, does the development comply with the town plan? So for the chair of our Conservation Commission to say this town plan is not regulatory, that is totally wrong. And it bothers me as somebody who used to work with the Act 250 program to hear people say that. So I just wanted to make that point. I hope you, and then furthermore, I would ask you, for once I'm not sitting here with my pile of paper in front of me, although I could put my hands on it, but if somebody, maybe Keith, if you've got the draft plan there, if you could look at the future uses section and look at the future uses section of the rural conservation district and read that language, it is so clearly directive. It does not say what Virginia just said, that development in the rural conservation areas should be protective of the natural resources that are there. It's way more, I mean, it uses the word shall, and there's not a lot of wiggle room with the language that is used there. And I think that's part of what probably has Mary concerned, and it's part of what's had me concerned all along. And that's why you were kind enough to put in that extra language about the fact that forestry activities can happen in that district.
Well, I can read
And I
it for
appreciate that you
you.
did that.
I can read it for you,
Yeah, would you
Marcy.
read it
So future uses.
for the
All
record?
development in this area,
Yeah.
which indicates that there is the possibility for development, shall be compatible with the preservation of significant natural resources, including flood hazard area. And by the way, part of Mary's property is in the flood hazard zone.
Right.
Forest blocks,
right.
river corridors, wetlands, habitat connectors, and elevations over 900 feet, which I think we took out. I'm reading it from an earlier draft, which I have in paper.
good.
We
You
took
did
out
take
the
that out.
900 square feet,
Yes.
elevations over 900 feet. So development shall be compatible with the preservation of the natural resources.
Right, and I agree.
So-
I know that's what the language says, and I just want to say that when you're talking about wetlands, they're fairly well delineated, or they are generally, if you're going to build near a wetland, you've got a delineation. Um, Floodplain, for instance, is clearly marked on a map. Forest blocks are really big, all-encompassing areas of land that in some cases include house sites. And when you say shall be compatible with preservation of forest blocks, that it's hard for me to look at that language and say that I don't think you're going to be allowing subdivisions of those properties. I don't, I
Well,
really question whether you'll be allowing house lots because they're going to interfere with a forest block.
well,
Debate it. I just want to make my case.
Yeah.
I just want to make the point once again that the language you've chosen to use there doesn't leave, I don't think it leaves any wiggle room. It's very definitive. Shall as opposed to should be. There's a big difference. And when you're in the Act 250 arena and you're deciding on a project and you have to decide, does it comply with the town plan or not? There's not much that's going to comply with the town plan in the rural conservation district.
well, is it compatible? Compatible is what the language is here. And there are developments, even with forest blocks, where the development can be compatible. If it's at the edge of the forest block, for instance, if it's clustered housing in a small area of the forest block, and we don't even know whether the forest block was the natural resource overlay that overlaid Mary Hoole's property.
Oh, I looked it up at one point. And I think it's natural communities, natural and species communities is what's in the back part of her land, which is that's still something I don't understand. I've mentioned it a few times that I don't know if there's highest priority natural communities or just all natural communities. I never dug into that enough. I asked the question, but I never got an answer. So I don't know about that. But you said on the edge of a forest block, I raised the issue more than once about the fact that in Bolton, the land adjoining ours is in ag and forestry.
Yep, and so that is considered to be compatible with natural resources. That may be compatible with rural conservation. Because
Actually, the back
agriculture and forestry and farming are compatible. For instance,
compatible, but it's, wait, Virginia, compatible with the preservation of large forest blocks? Is that what the language says?
compatible with the preservation of significant natural resources.
There you go. Okay, including forest blocks. Compatible with the preservation of. To preserve a forest block, you're not going to be developing in it, I don't think. But you know what? You guys have listened to me on this topic for 2 months now, and I don't want to derail things, but I still object to Judy Rivosky talking about the town plan not being regulatory. As somebody who works for the state and runs our conservation commission, it just, that was one of the comments I would have made on Monday night if it hadn't been so late by the time, they got through the amendments and I think Judy needs to know that.
Well, it's not regulatory from the sense of zoning locally. But
Right, it is regulatory.
hold on, it will influence obviously what the state's going to do. There's no doubt about that. I agree with you on that. And it does have an influence on how we promulgate. It gives us our snapshot in time. But from a local perspective and from an administrator's perspective, it's not regulatory at all locally. But I do agree with you on the regional aspect of it. The A250 specifically.
Yep.
Okay, where were we? Oh, we were talking about any comments that there were. Karen Yagi made a comment. And I think she was the only other one that spoke during the actual public hearing. So anyway, it's clearly not the end of this mapping. We have allowed for amendments to the map when it has passed, amendments based on tax map, based on parcel boundaries, based on, there are already some things that look like the Regional Planning Commission's base map got wrong. So there's going to be amending that is happening to this. Clearly, it's not the end of this map. We can amend it at any time. We can amend the plan at any time. So I'm sure that there will be continued discussion about this issue. And in fact, at the state level, there will be a lot of discussion about preserving our natural resources. The state has become interested in preserving the natural resources, and it may come up against what people want to do with their land. So those compromises are going to have to be worked out both at the state level and at the local level. What are the compromises that we're going to make? What are we going to say is compatible with preserving our natural resources? In fact, it's even unclear right now whether the state thinks of ag land and timber harvesting on forestry land as preserving natural resources. Do they consider those preserving natural resources or not? This is going to have to be a discussion that we all have. It's sort of a different discussion than we used to have about developing, which was about buildings. Now, are we talking about agricultural land as development? Well, it's not preserving the ecosystem. So maybe it's development in that sense, but it has always been put in the bucket of natural resources. So it's a question will be discussed. Marcy.
Yeah, I just want to say mentioned, since you mentioned ag land, and kind of back to forest land and forest blocks, I would maintain that if you had to preserve one or the other, that it's way more important to preserve ag land because that's the land that grows our food. And I think, as we all know from the history of Vermont, which at one time was what, 80% cleared or something like that, forests do grow back. Primary ag soil doesn't grow back. There's a limited supply of it. And so between the two of them, I think ag soils, ag land, ag soils in particular, are the more critical thing to be really concerned about than forest blocks. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I think you will find that the ecosystem people will differ with you on that. And also, by the way, in forest blocks, there is timber harvesting in many of the big state forest blocks that have been identified as forest blocks. There is timber harvesting. So, there's a kind of an overlap amongst all these different uses for the land. And the 30 by 30 law that was passed envisioned ecosystem protection as being equally important as using the land for anything. So, it's a discussion. It's going to have to happen. There are many demands that we make now on the land, and how to prioritize them is going to be difficult. I think it's going to be, a conversation. So, anybody else want to say anything about this? So, at the present time, what is happening is Keith is scrubbing it. The amendments are being put into the third draft. That is what is going to come to the hearing on the 21st. All right. So if no one has any other questions or comments about that, and a copy of it will be up shortly, at least on our website, on our webpage. I don't know when the select board is going to put it up for their hearing. I would like it to go up before they put their agenda up for the Friday before. That doesn't give people very much time to review it. So I would like it either to, link to our planning page or for them to have it on the select board page.
That's the plan. That's the plan. It'll be in the 3 sections that we put it in: the news section, with a link to the town plan steering committee and the planning commission.
Okay, yeah, and we'll rewrite all that stuff that's on the webpage because it's no longer relevant. So
yeah, and just to let you know, I'm about 95% done with all the scrubbing. I mean, the implementation table's been taken care of. There's definitely some typos that I've sussed out. And there's some formatting that needs to be done. That's the only thing that needs to be done at this point, is some formatting. And I'd like to get that before your eyes, Virginia, as we discussed earlier today, and Chelsea's.
okay.
You're the chair and co-chair of the steering committee.
And you put in the new action items into the implementation plan, right?
The implementation table is completed, yes.
Okay.
But I need another set of eyes on it. So
Yeah, great.
that's
Yeah.
it up.
We'll look at it very carefully and
I mean, it looks
find
real
those errors.
good. The content might not be agreeable to everybody, but as a document, it's looking pretty good. So.
Okay. All right, great. So, and did you have anything you wanted to report from your meeting with regional planning today, or you want to wait on that, Keith?
No, it's real quick. There will be, after, the flu map is still a draft flu map with them, and there's a section in the town that requires a change from the LURB. That's off of Cochrane Road. Not a big issue whatsoever. It was explained to me that we can't update this map as we go along, even after it's been approved and it's attached. That was confirmed today in no uncertain terms. So that's the biggest thing I got out of that meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Which we have stressed all along, that it is amendable and that clearly we'll need to work on it.
Yeah,
So,
and that language is installed in
Right.
action items. So
yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on to number 6, which is other business. And so the things on my short list are recruitment. I don't know exactly what we can do, but we would like to fill our vacancy on the Planning Commission. There's also a vacancy on the Housing Committee. And we would like to have a full contingent to move along with our planning activities if possible. So I guess anybody have any ideas besides the Front Porch Forum posts for recruiting for the Planning Commission?
Door to door.
Big wads of cash.
Yeah.
How about Marcy?
Yeah, we've been working on Marcy,
Out there.
but
Not interested?
no, she's
She's too busy knitting.
you're muted, Marcy. If you're talking to us, you're muted.
I think I've said before that I find it really difficult between Zoom meetings and all documents being online. It's just a lot to navigate, and it's sort of not how I really want to spend my time. But thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll change my mind sometime.
yeah, you might.
See that you've spent a lot of time on town committees and helping us out. I remember, well, maybe 10 years ago or less, you serving for a bit on your most recent round of help on the planning commission. So I definitely acknowledge and appreciate your contributions.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, well, we can at least start with some Front Porch Forum posts and see if we can get any enthusiasm going. If you have any ideas about how we would like to present this, you can just let me know in an email.
Do you find that people are generally disengaged right now?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then not
What
just.
do you think that is? Is it like the political climate or the social, like people just look at their phones all night? But what is
I know people have a lot on their mind thinking about our larger political sphere.
No, but like, what better way to like cure that discomfort than to actually get involved with what's going on in your community? You know,
Yeah, Marcy.
maybe that could be the sorry, Marcy, to be the focus of any communication or that we make.
True.
You know,
That's the point. Yeah.
I think the lack of input you got from the public at your public meetings, public hearings on this town plan demonstrate two things. One is the public is really disengaged in this process, like really disengaged. I remember talking to Bob Lowe after the first Planning Commission public hearing when very, very few people showed up, and he was just appalled at the number of people that, that there weren't bigger crowds at those meetings.
Yeah.
And I also think it's a reflection of the complexity of what's going on with this town plan. I know I talked to two neighbors of mine about the issues on Stage Road and, rural conservation and so forth. And both of them said to me, they looked at it. I wrote a long email kind of explaining Act 181 and I wrote a long email with some background information, and both of them were just overwhelmed. Couldn't deal with it. Of course, it was over Christmas and stuff, but still, it was more than just holidays. It was just that it's too much to get your arms around, especially for somebody who doesn't have a background in things like planning and zoning and regulations and land development and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I see this region wide too, though, and it is complex. I would agree that definitely has a contribution to that. But there is a general disengagement. I mean, regional. I had this conversation today at regional planning, and they're seeing that also in the towns in Chittenden County. And you look at the, how full are the boards? You know, how full are the planning commissions? We're down 2 members, you know, basically. And, you know, housing committee's down 1. The DRB is 1 full committee, but it's just, there's something going on. I don't know what it is. I'm not a sociologist, but there's definitely something going on.
Well, the issues are complex. It's not even just about the flu mapping, but the housing issue. You know, there are a lot of issues that we have that seem really difficult, I think, to people. And if you start digging into the nitty-gritty of them, then, you know, they seem very difficult to work on. So I'm not surprised, kind of, that it's a lot for people when they're dealing with, you know, whatever else they're dealing with. So the Trails Committee, you know, all of those issues that are, that deal with kind of conflicts. So
Yeah.
how to solve
Things
them.
move at such a glacial pace too. You know, I think that also runs counter to people's expectations these days. People are used to having things happen quickly.
Right, but then, you know, they happen quickly and people don't like that either.
Yeah, right.
They would rather they didn't happen at all, you know, or they moved very slowly. So it's hard to get the right pace, I think, and hard to come up with simple, implementable solutions to these problems that can then be done, you know, the next day or whatever. So anyway, so recruitment is on the list. Then I just wanted to review the things that the Planning Commission has already committed itself to doing, regardless of the town plan, whether it passes or not. One is, if you recall, we revised the zoning to replace the master development plan language with critical permit conditions after working with the attorney. And we have not changed the subdivision regulations, which still use the master development plan language. So we need to do that. We need to revise the subdivision regulations to match the zoning in terms of talking about critical permit conditions. So that's one thing that we're committed to. Second is to the Village Commercial District has full-time residential housing, so they need to be updated. That district needs to be updated with the Act 181 provisions, you know, about the density, the 5 units per acre, which is involving areas that have water and sewer and that have full-time residential use. So they have full-time residential use. So we really need to do that to make it match 181, just like we did the other districts in the water and sewer area.
Excuse me, Virginia, are we out of compliance in those districts? Those we have fairly decent density. I know we have to update to 5 acres, but I mean, like in practice, are we? I mean, we've got pretty high density there, right?
Are you talking about the Village Commercial District? Or are you talking about the other districts that we worked on, actually, like the Residential Commercial District or Jelena Court, obviously, has got.
Those. We're good there.
Yeah. So
Advertising wise, I'm wondering, you know, I know we have to technically get them updated, but I don't think those are, if anything, I think some of those have pretty high densities, don't they?
Well, the residential commercial, we made that updated to Act 181. And the 2 neighborhoods, you know, the Village Residential Neighborhood North, the Village Residential Neighborhood South, they are compatible. Any district like the Village Commercial, if a question arose, it would be administrated by the statute. So the DRB has to administrate it, whatever our zoning says, according to the statutory requirements. So, you know, I mean, if you want to look at it like this, it doesn't matter exactly what we say in our zoning because it's going to be administrated the way the state statutes read. But the reason we want to update it is to make everyone who comes with a project aware of what is going to be required of them. So to have our be correct. And the other thing about the village commercial was we have talked briefly about allowing residences there so that, for instance, a second story could be added, which is another discussion that we will need to have. Do we want to allow another story beyond the 35 feet that we've traditionally always had? Do we want to go to 45 feet or whatever to allow an additional story for additional residential use?
That's something I would love to address. I'd like to, and I know you're bringing out different districts and whatever, but I'd kind of like to get some of the bigger picture stuff, like, height requirements. We just let it ride completely in Jelena Court because we, the state and our insurance aren't going to be impacted if height restrictions go above 35 because they have water sprinkler systems and those kinds of things. So I don't see the need for. I would like to address some of those piecemeal things that have popped up, like height.
Mm-hmm.
And rework those individually rather than getting into another district. I don't know if anybody, unless somebody comes to us right now and says, I don't know, we'll take village commercial because we were just talking about it, but I really want to do this in the village commercial and we're all in agreement, the town's generally in agreement that that's good for the town, then we should tackle village commercial. But I'd kind of like to clean up the errata sheet from the DRB, get some feedback from the guy who's just, oh my gosh, who's our new zoning
Dante Dino. Yep.
say if he's watching.
He's not.
Yes. Not live maybe, but hopefully he'll catch up on it. But anyways, yeah, get him involved, get some feedback from him. There's, I'm sure, lots of other little things that we could clean up and just sort of start polishing it. And by all means, if somebody comes to us with a particular issue about a particular district, yeah, we'll tackle it right off. But there's stormwater runoff. There's Airbnb, not temporary rental, I think is the proper term, rather than, it's not just Airbnb. There's a lot of verbo. There's a whole bunch of them.
Short-term rental.
Short-term rentals. I would love to spend some time researching and investigating those a little bit more. That's my 2 cents anyways.
Okay. And the thing about talking to Dante about the DRB and getting input from him and collaborating with him is there is in the plan a whole section about updating the zoning and DRB's procedures and regulations. So I was thinking if we wait until after the plan is passed, then that would be, then we would be able to check that off our list of things that, because there are a lot of things on that list about procedures and so on. And
Streamlining.
Streamlining, whatever you want to call it.
That's the word that kept coming up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So, yes, one reason that I thought we might want to work on the village commercial is that Danny Noyes has been opposed to residential developments pretty much up until now, but he's he's thinking of moving the property along to his son, and he would like his son to have more options. So he's more positively inclined towards allowing some mixed use there anyway that includes residential. So that might be a positive development.
Perfect example. Certainly if Dan and his son come to us and say, oh, we'd like to have more housing in the center of the village, that's a win for everybody. and we
Yeah.
could get into it. But if they're like, oh, at some point maybe I'd like to, that's not really as much perhaps a priority as the streamlining, the preemptive streamlining that we could initiate.
Yeah, well, we'll put it on the list. Chelsea, you had something you wanted to say?
Muted.
Muted. Thank you.
Hey, I put my hand down and then forgot to unmute. I'm just looking for just some I guess background and clarification. All the faces I'm making are because I'm like increasingly zooming in on our zoning map, trying to look at the village commercial district.
Yeah.
Because is that the one that you just said has full-time residential on it right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has 2 single-family homes, at least, maybe 3 single-family homes, and some apartments also.
Oh, is that where there's like condos back there?
Well, the Church Street condos, that's a different thing, but there is a house that's sort of between Church Street and Railroad Street.
Okay.
And then above the hardware store, there's
Yeah.
apartments.
Okay.
So there are some. Currently, residential is not an allowed use. Even, those are grandfathered, those houses that are there already.
Okay, I see. That's why I was sort of trying to piece together what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the idea, was possibly to rope in to Village Commercial the Round Church Corners complex, which is not in Village Commercial. It's in the commercial district, along with the Lucky Spot and the BYCC, which for some reason is in commercial, even though it's questionable that that's the place that it ought to be. So putting those two together, the Village Commercial Railroad Street and the Round Church Corners complex, and allowing residential uses in both, might be planning for the future, basically. Anyway, so it's on the list. If people want to go in some other direction, then we can do that at some point. We should do that at some point. Yeah, so, and any other comments? Oh, and the other thing that the Planning Commission had on its plate that we didn't do, but we have talked about, is the question of defining trails and understanding what, so that everyone is talking about the same thing when we talk about a trail. In the zoning currently, section 2.4, there's recreation path, which is an undefined term that is allowed in any district without saying anything much about it. It has caused some controversy as to what that is. Is it a trail? What is a trail? Is there a difference between a natural trail with no bridges or whatever on it, boardwalks? Is there a difference between that kind of trail and a trail that has construction on it? So if we could come upon a definition for trail and have that discussion amongst all the people who are interested in trails, the mountain bikers, conservation people, all of those people, get them together and see if we could come to a common understanding of language that we can use in our zoning about trails. Let's see, I think, Chelsea, you had your hand up first, then Ian.
So the only comment I was going to make regarding trails is that when that topic came up previously, you guys had a meeting that I watched back and people were interested in participating in that. I started digging into it, and Keith would have to confirm, because I don't have the zoning regs up right now and I don't remember the exact language, but somewhere, I think it might be in the definitions section, it says here's the definitions that we use, and if something isn't defined here, we default to like the statutory definition of something.
Yep.
And so technically, even though trails aren't defined in our zoning regs, we would lean on statutory definition. So it kind of is an interesting, just wanted to bring it up because we may want to sort of pull in that information, like what is the statutory definition, and
Right,
like,
definitely.
you know, and sort of how do we want to potentially differ from that, or what do we want to maintain the same, and potentially even what are neighboring towns doing, because a lot of trails have connectivity to neighboring towns, and not to say that we have to do what they're doing, but that could be interesting information for us to have when we have that conversation as well, I think.
Yeah, well, I definitely think researching it is important. You know, it's not just what the different groups think, but it's what is a common definition, what is statutory definition, you know, all of those things you pointed out, I think will be important. So, Ian,
Sorry about that. My little mouse thing isn't working well. I guess I was just listening to some of the comments. Do you feel, well, I have two questions for Virginia, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the work that's coming out of this committee is looked upon favorably in general? I do, I would say. I don't feel like there's been a lot of
yeah,
negative feedback from the community. I know there's been, like, you know, Marcy's had some concerns, but like not in a negative way. There was that, and also I guess I kind of wanted to know from Virginia how she's feeling about how much time and energy she's gonna feel like putting into this going forward, because you're such an important part of what's happening on the committee.
well, it'll be great not having to work on the town plan all the time.
Yep.
That'll free up some time. Yeah, I mean, I think any of these topics is going to need some research. So we're going to have to keep that in mind. You know, Keith's time, my time, if anyone else wants to be involved in doing the research part of it, that would be good. So I think any of these topics we can start. We don't have to, you know, finish them next week. We're not going to be able to finish them next week, but it will be good, I think, to be getting back to this work, like the work that we were doing before, you know, with the village districts and having people come in to give their comments, and then trying to put that all together, trying to formulate the shape of the discussion a little bit. So, yep. I mean, I'm good with that. Next, at our next meeting, which, by the way, will not be on the 21st, which would be our normal meeting, January 21st, but that is the date of the public hearing on the plan. So that is what will happen in place of our planning commission meeting. So if people would like to come to that, that would be great. So our next meeting is going to be the first meeting in February, and we'll have an organizational meeting, and then maybe, having thought about some of these topics, decide where we want to start, and we're only going to be able to proceed as fast as we all have time for. So, yeah. I mean, it's interesting work. I am interested in all of it, but obviously you can only do so much. We don't have anyone right now that we know of who's waiting in the wings to do a project and is not able to do a project. So we could find out from Keith maybe what permits or applications are coming in, or maybe, like Mark suggested, have Dante come in and talk to us a little bit about what is coming in terms of applications.
Yeah, I mean, I can provide that information, and you'll see Dante is going to be integrated into the planning commission as time goes on. I do want him to focus on the DRB at this point. Right now, we have a two sketch plans. One is going to be going It's where the blueberry farm is. I'll let you know that. And then there's another sketch plan for, oh gosh, what was it? I'd have to get back to you on that. I can't remember it off the top of my head. And then there's obviously the issues with Jericho Road, 1330 there that we're dealing with. That's an ongoing saga. But we certainly can provide an update every month for you folks if you wish. I could provide something for them. I just don't. With Dante, I want to make sure that he's focusing on the zoning aspect of issues. And then as part of my succession planning is to start to introduce him into the planning part, because my hope is that he will take this position over and then we'll hire another ZA. But I want to just get him slowly acclimated to it. And you'll see him in the coming months coming to some meetings. But again, this is not his focus. We certainly can provide some type of documentation on what's going on and what's coming down the pike, as you know.
And, it may be that we will, since these projects seem to be in the AR district, we will want to take that big project on sooner rather than later. And because of the questions that have arisen through the town plan process. Mark.
Hey, yeah, I'm sorry, just caught my ear with the Blueberry Farm sketch plan. Is that something that's in the system yet? Have they submitted?
That most likely won't get it's not on an agenda yet. It is scheduled for February at this point. But we do have the documentation in if you want to take a look at it. It's not digitized or it's not up online or anything along those lines. But I'm trying to remember what the subdivision was, and I can't off the top of my head, but I'll try to dig that out for you guys. But there's no real commercial issues going on. Permitting has, there's one thing with the Vermont Land Trust that we have on for the back barn there. They want to turn into a little conference room. So I know that's going on, and there's other things that are just out there, just flitting away. Things are just not complete yet. So that's half the battle of zoning, I think, as you know, is getting a complete application. So that's what we're dealing with here.
Do you think the Blueberry Farm or the VYCC is going to be looking for some zoning changes for those?
Oh, I don't think VYCC will really care too much, but no, I don't think there's any. No, I mean, it's all fitting the current zoning. So if that answers your question, Mark.
That's the biggest thing. I'd kind of love to know more about the VYCC just because it's the Blueberry Farm because it's across the road for me, but that's
of course, yes,
more of a personal issue than
Yep.
Again, I got
Hillview Heights on your side.
and Blueberry Farm in my front. So thank goodness I got a nice back door that nobody can build on.
Yeah, there you go.
Chelsea.
Oh, I have something to say, but I need to move my location, so I will come back in a moment.
Okay, very good. Okay, so if you all could be thinking about for our next meeting, not the one on the 21st, but if you have any strong interest in proceeding in any one of these directions that we either need to go or would like to go, that would be great. All right.
Stormwater.
Perfect.
Yeah, what's happening with stormwater, Keith? Do you have any updates on that?
No, I mean, the focus has been on the town plan, so I haven't been able to focus on that. So, my feelings on stormwater. So we need to do something, especially if we're doing infill development. So that's going to require quite a bit of research. What are other towns doing? How far do we want to take this? Because it's a burden for the mom and pop developers. If they're going to put an ADU in, we're going to require them to have rain gardens. We're going to require them to take care of a 25-year storm. That's going to be an engineer. So that's something we definitely have to discuss. There's no doubt about that. We do have the internal policy on erosion and sedimentation. We don't release permits unless you give us something as far as a silt fence or some type of buffering or something along those lines. That's about the extent of the erosion and sedimentation and stormwater issues that we're dealing with. But stormwater is huge, no doubt.
Do you think that we should be focusing on that?
I
As-
think if we're expecting infill development, I think absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a huge thing, but that's going to require some serious, that's going to require an engineer to come in and talk to us and a lot of research. And, we happen to have $10,000 in for planning projects. So we could certainly use that if need be. And I guess one other update I do have is we do have a green light at this point. Our application has been approved for a traffic study at Jolena Court, Bridge Street, and Railroad for full build out after that's done. So that's moving forward. That'll be done after July, and it will be done strictly in the summer. It will definitely have with school and session studies also.
And the town's paying for that?
It's probably free of charge at this point. That's what I'm getting from regional planning. They can do it internally with what we give for our dues.
So the government's paying for that.
The government. Yep, we pay into that.
Where am I?
Ian,
So if we were going to review the driveway standard, that would fall under the stormwater subject, right?
It could get rolled into it. Depends on how you want to do that.
I mean, the driveway right now is in with Public Works, right? Or not? Are the driveway standards in Public Works, or
Driveway standards are in the zoning regulations.
they're in the zoning regulations? Okay.
So the rural road standards are in the rural road standards. So you could have a driveway up to three parcels. Once you hit that fourth parcel, you gotta upgrade it to rural road standards. That can change. You can rewrite that. But I mean, it's just so much on the plate, as you folks know. And I think getting to what is the priority is what should be focused on through consensus.
Okay.
Chelsea, in your new location.
Yeah, the library closes at 8, so I exited. They didn't know I was up there on the 3rd floor, I don't think. And when I came down, the lady was like, "Who are you?" "We're closing." I said, "No, I'm leaving. I'm leaving."
Oh no.
Anyhow, so I think I would like to certainly leave this meeting with an idea, even just of like some possibilities of where we want to go, because quite frankly, I would enjoy starting on some of this research and groundwork, and like I'm prepared to hit the ground running on this. Like I didn't join the planning commission to think about things. I would really like to do things.
Well, you have to think about them too.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I mean, like, there's got to be some action here, right? Like, even if it's just this research piece, like, I understand the actual like process of changing things is long and drawn out, but like, having some direction and some, a clear channel of where we're kind of going, I think will be really helpful. Especially even for recruitment, quite frankly, because like, if we're just like, I don't know what we're doing, and we just we're not sure, here's our 10 things that we could be doing, that's a lot harder to pitch to somebody. Versus like, yeah, we're really concerned about stormwater and the recent flooding, and like, we're going to take that head on. Like, that's our next thing. Right. And so I think that will help with recruitment, quite frankly. And I do think that should be pretty high up on our list of priorities, because it's been an issue like many different places throughout town. Obviously, there's like the state side of things, but beyond that, even just like in town, one of our steering committee members, for example, had adjacent development that now dumps water into his yard. And so like stuff like this, and that is in the village. And so like, as Keith just said, if we're looking at infill development and we have a storm sewer system in the village that cannot accept this water because otherwise the literal poop will hit the fan at the plant, then like we need to figure this out. And so
stormwater doesn't even go to the plant. Stormwater, all the stormwater drains go straight to the river.
I
FYI.
think, yeah, well, my understanding is that some of them used to, they had to disconnect them.
Yeah, they were combined at one point. They
Yeah.
were combined sewers.
Yeah.
So
Right
Yeah, they
now,
had, yeah,
everything,
no,
all your
correct.
dog poop, whatever, straight to the river.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a priority myself. I'll say it again because I'm high on the idea.
Yeah.
not on
Yeah.
anything else, Mark?
I know. I'm sorry. I'm harping.
That's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. I think working on a trails definition will also garner a lot of interest in public engagement. So like, whether or not that's something you want to sort of like
Ooh.
open that can of worms, you know, because I think it will. But again, if we're looking for engagement and people to join the planning commission, like maybe we need to open a couple of these controversial cans of worms
Yeah, give
and
them a
start talking
subject.
about them.
Yeah, give them a
And
subject to chew on. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Good point.
So yeah. And if we go down the stormwater path, I certainly have like a ton of knowledge about how the state handles it, and so how we could translate that here. I've looked up other town stuff as well. I've also worked pretty closely with a couple of engineers. So not to say that like they would do this for free for the town. They're my personal consultant pals, but I think like, perhaps some of those connections could be reached out to, and yeah, definitely.
Spend some money. Keith, what do you think about working on stormwater? I mean, is that something that is going to be, some of it will fall on you, obviously.
Well, certainly, yeah. I mean, I personally think it's probably the number one priority in the town, to be honest with you. And then it's the administration aspect of it too is a priority. So I absolutely amenable to that, no doubt. But I think I really like what Chelsea's saying is like give if you want to recruit somebody, you have to have a subject that's going to garner that recruitment. And I think that the board needs to figure out what they want to do and then present that to the public and get it out there. And then we can start working on that. I can't wait for this town plan to be done, honestly. So it's a good looking document. Let's get it through the door as best we can, and refine it as we go along, especially the flu map. And so we could really start working on getting the town more mature in a zoning perspective.
And one of the things that Keith and I talked about is after the plan is approved is getting to each agent of the action items a list of the things that they are the agent for, or the owner of, the action items, going to the Conservation Commission, going to the Planning Commission, going, to the racial equity group, because there are some things that they have been tasked with. But if we get a list of all the items that go to each agent, then they can be thinking about it too and working on their portion of it. Chelsea.
Sorry, it takes forever to unmute on the phone. I have a question, actually, just thought of it. Regarding our zoning regulations, if there are, so similar to talking about this like flu map updates, right? Like we're allowed to update the flu map. That's not like major, it's expected. If our zoning regs have like for a typo, for example, like, is that something that needs to go through the public hearing process?
Believe it or not, yeah, because it's law.
Okay. So yeah.
Well, I don't know about a typo. Really, Keith? I mean,
I mean,
I don't think so.
it shouldn't be messing with it, but it should be part of a package of future development for sure. I mean, future promulgation. I mean, formatting. I'm loath to touch that document until it gets before you guys and you guys promulgate. I just am, because it's law.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to sort of get an idea of like where that would fit in, because there's, it's not like a ton. There's like one spot where like a sub thing got stacked with the paragraph before, so it's like hard to tell like that that's a separate item. And so there's like a couple things like that. And I can sort of draft up a list, because if these are easy fixes, but things that should be like lumped in with other work so that it's all part of one public hearing, then I think we sort of simultaneously do that as well. You know, most bang for our buck. And then regarding the driveway standards, Ian, I'm not sure if you were asking about them for like from a stormwater perspective, but also currently, just to sort of throw it out there, the public works specs have a different minimum driveway width than our zoning regs do. And so that's definitely something that we'll want to clean up. I think, again, there's like protective language that's like, if things don't match, the more stricter thing applies, and like there's stuff like that in there, but like falling back on that is just more work for Keith and Dante and whoever has to administer the stuff. And so I think anyway.
That leads to the maturity. That leads to the maturity of the zoning regulations. You know, I've said this before. I look at it as a tween or maybe a young teen at this point. It's not an adult regulation, and it needs work. It's getting there. It's definitely getting there, but and it needs a lot of technical revisions, like you're saying, like typos. I'd like to see a chart on usage. I'd like to have a usage chart in there, based on what zone you're in, and just break that out. That makes life a lot easier for us to administer. Yeah, I mean, it's music to my ears, honestly.
Yeah, well, and what happened in the, back in 2018, after the 2018 town plan, there was an attempt, well, in 2012, there was an attempt to redo the whole zoning ordinance and bring it into the modern world. And it failed, as you recall, Mark, at the voting with the voters. It failed. It was too much all at once for people to think about the whole document and all the changes that were going to be in the zoning document. So we came to the conclusion that we would do it district by district. Right. And then at the end of doing all the districts, we would make sure that the whole thing was compatible, that there weren't any contradictions between any places. So what we have managed to do in the last 8 years is some of the districts. We haven't got to the end of the process where the whole thing was supposed to be made as one. So, we've been cleaning up section by section, zoning district by zoning district, so that the ones that we've done, the 2 villages, the RC district, the gateway, they're all more modern and updated. The other ones aren't modern and updated because we haven't got to them yet. So it's just a question of time and how much we can do at any one time. If we want to be keeping a running list of all these small changes, then that's fine. We could do it. We've talked about that before, is keeping a running list so that these things can be added into any kind of public hearing. It does mean that many sections more will be opened up rather than just one section, which I think has worked actually pretty well for us, because we've been able, like with the Village South and Village North, we've been able to have those people come in and have a discussion with those people. It's been very focused. Everybody, there's not too much material for people to grapple with at any one time. If we have a whole bunch of districts that we're doing all at the same time, then I think it's more confusing for people and difficult to think about all the ramifications. So, it's been slow and we haven't finished the districts, but hopefully now we will be able to finish the districts. So I don't know if you have a different thought than that, Mark, but I don't know. I think it's better than trying to explain everything to all of the whole town at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I would just add that the failure in 2012 not only came from organizing development and zoning regulations into a cohesive mass is that we changed a lot of stuff. Every little thing got changed. And the reason why it failed ultimately is that everybody had one little thing, and there was such a comprehensive document modification that it failed because somebody could find something they didn't like. There might be 100 things they liked, and they focused on the one thing they didn't like and voted no. And it did lost by, I don't know what it was. It was, it was a 60-40 split. It wasn't like a devastating no, but the problem is that we made the changes we're talking about doing, the incremental changes, the regulatory changes, the little things like clarifying driveways, and then also fixing the language on trails all at the same time. Somebody didn't like trails and somebody else didn't like sidewalks, and it all added up. There's something to be said for just making that split and addressing and not changing anything that's actually written, only merging that into a cohesive singular zoning reg. So
you're saying to make this simple, like do one district at a time and then merging them at the end. That has been our strategy. We just haven't got to the merging part yet because we haven't finished the districts.
14 years and we still have all of these faults versus and I've learned a lot in the time I've been on about addressing each district individually and seeing where people come from and what they want and those things. But I think if we were to not take as modernization and simply make the functional changes of a unified zoning regs, then we would be, and not do the changes, not go out and ask, not go, oh, what do you want? And how do you want to change your district and how you live? And how do you want to change your district and how you live? Just don't change anything but the fundamental structure of the regulations. And then we can go and get back to individualized districts. But I will say it again, even in above that, as much as that would probably make Keith and Dante's lives so much easier, is I think there's a lot of little stuff we can clean up quicker than trying to do that unification and do little things and get those through the system. And frankly, I'm going to say it again, stormwater and addressing stormwater independent of some unified zoning regs. And then after that, we get those little baby steps cleaned up and the minutia and the errata list of paragraph joins and all that kind of stuff. Let's just do that. Let's try and focus on that. And then maybe in a year or two, we can tackle the unification and simplification of our regulations. I think it'll be easier too, because the little stuff will be cleaned up.
Yeah, top of my list is demolition permits. They are not required. And stakeouts for new building are not required in our zoning regulations. So that to me, that's on the top of my list of a technical change. But I like
development.
Yeah, well, what will be required is that we have this list.
Yeah, we'll have a list and we'll get that.
Somebody makes a list and that we try to make it, since it's going to be a public hearing process, take up the select board time, blah, blah, blah. We need to make it as complete as possible so we don't have too many of these all the time. So, yeah, I mean, I think we can do that concurrently with investigating a topic like stormwater or trails. You know, we can do those that need research as opposed to these that, well, somebody has to make the list anyway. So, you know, Mark, if you have anything you want to put on the list, be sure to keep your own list, and then we can combine them, combine the list.
We have an ongoing list that Tyler and I had begun, and Dante is now in that fold also. So it's a pretty good list.
Okay, well, you know, we can attack that whenever somebody wants to present it.
February 4th, let's share the list. Might be
No
abbreviated,
problem.
might be it might not be comprehensive. I'm sure Chelsea sounds like she's got a lot of good insight already. If it's not already on the list, to supplement that list, let's at least look at that. You know, we're pretty much done with the town plan at this point, other than some formalities. Let's start that look at, I keep calling it the errata list because I don't have a better all-encompassing minutia reference, but
Right.
How do you spell that?
there and begin to start the process of what it would take to stormwater, because that's a big one. That is a big one, and like you said, Virginia, there's something there's things we can pick away at, and then also do deeper dives on behind the scenes and sort of build on. And I would love those to be our focus as a committee for the next year and see what happens.
Okay. All right, well, that sounds like a good program for our first meeting in February, is to see if we can have some beginning ideas about what it would take to think about stormwater, and some kind of a list if it's ready, and also we'll have our organizational meeting. So, all right, great. Anybody else have any comments?
I do. As far as recruitment goes, and it's associated with that, it sounds like that you're landing on stormwater as a potential subject. I think you should probably have at least one more subject to, you know, get a larger pool potentially. And I'm not sure what the board would want to do. If you open up trails, I think that's going to be a huge one.
Short rental.
Yeah, that too. I mean, I watch that on a monthly basis. I see what the tallies are. It's not horrid. It's usually 7 or 8 in the whole town. But that's 7 or 8 houses.
I think, who was it? Was it somebody at the housing committee who was talking about the fact, oh no, it was Adam Wood, I think, who was actually talking about the fact that recently there have been a lot more listings on the sites. So that would be a start to look into whether that, you know, whether that is something that we should be talking about.
Yeah, last time I checked, it was November. Usually spikes in the summer a little bit more, but ski season too. So I haven't looked at it recently.
Chelsea.
I guess so. If we're putting up our opinions or sort of votes on a secondary to stormwater, I would advocate for trails, simply because I think a lot of the work and regs will overlap, because when we're not, like, aside from just the definition, like what is a trail, like aside from that very basic foundation, a lot of, I think, the stuff that we may or may not want to implement, but likely we'll be looking at, will be concurrent with stormwater stuff, like the best management practices for, you know, forestry and doing things in the woods, which is where a lot of the trails are in Richmond, are very similar to best management practices for stormwater. Things like putting, you know, water bars in and making sure you're maintaining certain slopes and grades, and like, because if people are looking for regs, they can develop more trails, which I think that's where it leans. It's not like people aren't looking for regs so they can restrict it. People are looking for regs so then they can move forward. And if that's the case, then I think it's important to, realize the potential impacts, and a lot of that also lines up with stormwater stuff. Not opposed to looking into short-term rental stuff, but I don't know as much about that, and I personally haven't seen like a ton. I also looked it up at one point and like found some, and like there was a couple surprising ones, like one on Jericho Road that I didn't know people rented out, but I didn't see a ton of like half of Richmond is being rented, and that's why we don't have housing type thing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho, muting
Okay.
myself.
All right. Mark. You're muted, Mark.
Glad
That was good that you were muted right then. It was good.
we all are for public discourse. But I would actually agree very much with Chelsea's take on that with trails and stormwater and the correlation between them. But maybe perhaps we could get and I say we when I really am talking to Virginia and Keith, most likely in getting some sort of handle on what's going on with the short-term rental market regulatory efforts. Like if that's showing up in the legislature now, and that's a talking point, and what other towns are doing and groundbreaking stuff, like what is CCRPC's take on it? What are they saying? And if things are in the works on a bigger picture, then maybe we don't need to do all the legwork, and we can focus on something like trails and stormwater. Whereas if there's something that we can move forward with on short-term rentals that is actionable, then maybe we could consider. But if it's not, and there's other things coming, then yeah, trails and stormwater, I think do have a lot of similarities.
Okay. Chelsea?
I was just going to throw into that hat of like pooling resources and like looking at CCRPC, also the housing committee. Like, quite frankly, if we were to look at any potential regs or even just a registration or anything to do with short-term rentals, I think they would be perfect candidates to do some of this research and legwork and whatnot. So maybe you can pitch that over there, Virginia.
Yeah, I can bring that up to the housing committee to, it seems like it would fit into their mission pretty good. So they're a little short of members right now also. So, we'll have to take that into consideration. All right. Well, yeah. So in our publicity for recruitment, we will put these ideas out there and say, this is what we're going to be working on. And, we welcome you to come and think with us, and any expertise that you might have would be great on these topics. And so anyway, that's good ideas. Okay, any other comments? Keith, did you have anything else you wanted to say about anything other business wise?
Nope, I think I've said what needs to be said at this point. I need to figure out what that other subdivision is.
Okay.
Have I mentioned stormwater yet?
All right. So on that note, I think if there's nothing else that anybody wants to say, we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn for the evening.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll
If
second
Ian
that.
is, oh, okay. I thought
I
maybe you
tried
were
to make the
muted.
motion, but I was muted. Mark beat me to it.
Okay, well, a second is as good.
Yeah.
So any other discussion? Anybody want to say anything before we
So
adjourn?
that public hearing in a couple of weeks is the select board's public hearing?
The select board's public hearing, yes.
Okay.
And we did have both Chelsea and Jason Osterman from the steering committee came to the hearing on the 5th. So planning commissioners, you would be welcome. It would be good to come and be a presence.
So Patty Gilbert was the other subdivision. So
Oh.
just wanted to let you know that. Let's, where is that? That is Beatty Lane, Beatty Lane, sorry, Beatty Lane.
Is that
Beatty Lane, where is that?
It's over by Swamp Road.
Oh, bordering Heinsberg,
Yeah, close to it. Yep.
close to Heinsberg. Okay.
Yeah.
pronounce
On
it body?
Yes, she pronounces it Beatty,
Beatty.
not Beatty.
I think I
Beefy.
think I saw the wastewater stuff for that. It's like loops up around into the woods.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
really,
where's not wood?
shoehorned. It's really shoehorned in there, the wastewater.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but they've
Yeah.
got the permits.
Yep. Yeah, I think I saw all that stuff.
But-
Just a side note for those of you who are on this, I guess before we adjourn, sorry to stop this.
That's okay.
motion.
It's discussion.
Is if you're not already, or if you're interested in it, kind of keeping your finger on like what's going on in town, even before it hits our own planning and zoning office. Oftentimes people are pursuing state permits for wastewater or, stormwater or whatever. And so sometimes years even before they come to the town with permits, they'll get that stuff under their belt, and you can join the environmental notice bulletin. It's the ENB. And if you go to the state's website, you can subscribe. And so you can literally just say, send me notifications of things happening in Richmond. And you can like narrow it down, and then you'll get an email when their stuff hits the ENB, because then you'll know at what point it's there, because there's also like a public comment period. And so you can then participate in that way if you are interested in that.
Who puts that out, Chelsea?
Just
The
a hot tip.
environmental notice bulletin?
That
I
I
think it's A&R.
I think it is.
Yeah,
A&R,
okay.
yeah. It's an A&R
But-
doc.
Thank you.
Great.
A lot of bottled water recently.
Yeah, you got to unsubscribe from that one, or else you're.
A lot of bottled water. All right, we digress.
Thanks for the
Okay.
tip.
Yeah,
No problem.
very, very good. Great. So if there is no objection, I'm not hearing any objection, seeing any hands, we will adjourn for the moment, and we will see you all on in our first February meeting, other than the 21st hearing. We can also talk about whether we would like to actually have an in-person meeting at some point. This planning commission started pretty much during the pandemic, a little before that, and we have not really met in person at all. Now, that doesn't deny anyone access for coming to the meeting. The public is invited by telephone, by computer, over the Zoom, but it would maybe be nice for us all to get together and have a meeting at some point in time. So
Sounds good.
we can think about when we would like to do that.
Sure.
So, all right, great. Well, thank you,
night.
everybody.
Thanks.
Yes, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Take care.